Many people have attributed the Raptors' troublesome start to the previous season the fact that they did not have a proper center for their team, and that snowballed into quite a disaster of a season, which is why it is so important for the Raptors to set it straight this offseason and bring in a proper big man, which is why they reportedly have a big interest in the New York Knicks center, Nerlens Noel. So in this video, we're going to uncover why the Raptors have interest in this player and why it is the best destination for the player. Let's get into it. Welcome NBA and Raptors fans to Amateur Hour Sports. This is the channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. That is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. This is your Monday episode where we're talking about Nerlens Noel and his fit with the Toronto Raptors amidst reported interest from the team. So if you like what you see from today's video and want more of myself talking about the NBA and the Raptors in videos and content just like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. On a road to 5,000 subscribers. You can help us get there by subscribing. We're getting very close to 4.5K, halfway to that big milestone of 5,000 where when we hit it, I will shave my head. So let's get on that road. But let's get down to business for today's video. We're talking about Nerlens Noel because the Raptors have reportedly had interest in this player, and this isn't the first time that I've talked about the Raptors bringing in a possible new center. I went with the more expensive route in the previous video a couple weeks ago talking about Richaun Holmes, but a lot of you out there watching the videos have expressed interest in Nerlens Noel, and apparently, according to reports, the Raptors share the desire to bring in this player, and I'm not really seeing as many links these days going with Richaun Holmes. It's more so an interest in Nerlens Noel. We're going to get into why that is the case. But first, let's talk a little bit about Nerlens Noel, a little bit of his history, how he got to where he is today at 27 years old. Still quite young, especially for the center position. So if you're really thinking about the process with the Philadelphia 76ers and the early days of that process, Nerlens Noel, especially for me, comes to mind because he was one of the early draft picks in that process, getting selected 6th overall. And much like many players in the process, he was injured throughout his first season, but ultimately never really made tremendous strides with the 76ers. Eventually, in his 4th season of his contract, he was traded to the Dallas Mavericks halfway through, where he produced some good numbers, leading to the Dallas Mavericks offering him a 4-year, $70 million contract, a great contract for the player, excellent value. But that was in 2016-2017, and even though that was a very lucrative contract for Nerlens Noel based on his output, he turned it down and bet on himself. He thought that, no, if I play one more season in the NBA, I can be making more than that. So Nerlens Noel went for the bet on yourself attitude, and sometimes it does not pay off. You know, Fred VanVleet always says bet on yourself, but sometimes just doesn't quite pay off. Because after taking a 1-year deal worth $4 million to stay with Dallas, he got injured. And once that season ended, instead of making 4 years, $70 million, there weren't really any teams looking for this player. And he ended up signing a minimum deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder, where performances didn't quite improve. And at the end of that season, he signed another minimum deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But that is where he went with the New York Knicks after that season, where he played a great season. It's arguably the most productive season of his NBA career to date. And looking at the statistics from that season, you know, it's not really eye-popping statistics, but this is kind of important, and we'll get to this. But the stats, they are quite good here, because even though he only had 5.1 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game, his defense is what makes him stick out, and his ability to be this kind of glue within a team, because you really need him as your defensive stalwart. And 2.2 blocks per game is very nice for the player. 1.1 steals per game is also great. In fact, that is number 1 in the NBA among centers, 1.1 steals per game. And even though the point totals are low, well, he does shoot pretty well from the field, I'd say. 61% from the field is nothing to be ashamed of. That is very good for this player. And also, above 70% shooting from the free throw line. That's fine for a big. That is something I can accept from a big man. So not eye-popping stats, but they are solid statistics, because this isn't just an eye-popping player. This is a guy that maybe you don't always notice, but he has a specific job to perform on defense, and he was key to the success of the New York Knicks over the course of this season. Tom Thibodeau really likes hard-nosed defensive teams, which is why Nerlens Noel was such a perfect player for the team. After signing a 1-year, $5 million contract with the New York Knicks, that was a good bet on yourself move because Nerlens Noel going through a season healthy, playing very well, helping this team get to the playoffs for the first time in quite a while. There are a lot of teams queuing up to give this guy a contract, so money is something that we do need to discuss here. But after only making $5 million last year, you're not going to have to break the bank to bring in Nerlens Noel, but of course, there are going to be teams lining up for him. It could turn into a little bit of a bidding war. But before we get into the money application, let's talk about why he fits so well within the Toronto Raptors system, because the Raptors have a lot of guys who need the ball to be effective. Pascal Siakam requires quite a bit of usage. Fred VanVleet requires definitely quite a bit of usage, as does Gary Trent Jr. OG can play a little bit off the ball, but I think OG is at his best the more he gets the ball. So I'd like to see this season the Raptors start giving it to OG a little bit more, let him create his own shot, because I saw some great strides in his development process last season. You're also about to bring in a 4th overall pick, which is likely going to be Jalen Suggs. And if Jalen Suggs comes in, I would like to see him start. I don't know if he'd start immediately over Gary Trent, but I'd like to see him start, which would lead to a lineup of Jalen Suggs at point guard, Fred VanVleet at shooting guard, OG Anunoby at the 3, Pascal Siakam at the 4, and we need to bring in a new center. Khem Birch, we don't really know if he is going to be that guy. I'm thinking it could definitely be Nerlens Noel. And looking at this team, you got 4 quite ball-dominant players. Bring in a 5th guy who doesn't require the ball. Every good NBA team needs that 5th man who just does his job on the court, doesn't require a lot of the ball to be effective, and Nerlens Noel fits that category to a T. Because bringing in Richaun Holmes, I would really like to bring in Richaun Holmes, but that's going to cost you about 4 years, $80 million. And for Richaun Holmes to be effective, he does need the ball a little bit. I mean, doesn't really spread out the floor, but having him at the center position is quite nice to give him, that catch and finish type vibe. But Nerlens Noel can provide that to not as high of a degree, but he can definitely do it, especially with that 61% field goal percentage. But what Nerlens Noel can do is get out of the way of these other guys. And even though he can't stretch the floor and make clog the paint a little bit, neither can a lot of these other guys in the free agent market. Because the fact of the matter is, this crop of free agents in the center position is not good this season. There's only a few that I have true interest in any way. Richaun Holmes being one of them, Nerlens Noel being one of them, and Khem Birch being the other. You could maybe throw Serge Ibaka into that equation, but other than that, you're really looking at somebody like Cody Zeller, which I'm not truly interested in. So essentially what you're looking at is a lot of teams who need a center with not a lot of players to choose from in free agency. And I think Nerlens Noel offensively doesn't really have a tremendous effect, but I think that's almost a good thing because you have so many other guys who can influence offense on the Raptors, especially if they draft Jalen Suggs. Now, this conversation completely changes if we draft Evan Mobley, which I don't think we are going to end up doing. I think Jalen Suggs is going to fall. So in the event it is Suggs, to fill out the 5 with Nerlens Noel to be that rock-solid defender who can do a job on offense when you provide him the opportunity, as you saw with the field goal percentages, I think that makes a lot of sense offensively. Now, defensively is where it gets really exciting and really interesting for Raptors fans because Fred VanVleet, as we all know, is a very good defender. A fully healthy Fred VanVleet, I think, has an opportunity to make an all-defense second team, one of the best point guards in the league at getting deflections, against getting steals, and also can play above his size, even though he is just about 6 feet tall. We know everything there is to know about OG Anunoby. He's a future DPOY candidate. I think a full season of OG Anunoby healthy is all-defense first team, and I think many NBA analysts would agree. Siakam is also a great defender. If we didn't have OG on our team, we'd be talking about Siakam's defense a lot more, but also adding in Jalen Suggs, who is a solid defender. Gary Trent isn't a terrible defender if he's on the court, but regardless, what we have with the first 4 guys is great defense. In fact, elite defense with a ton of switchability, and Nerlens Noel at the 5 provides just that. Again, the most steals in the NBA amongst centers at 1.1 steals per game, had 2.2 blocks per game, but in the paint is not just where Nerlens Noel does his job, and the steals are very good proof of that because Nerlens Noel, when necessary, can go out to the outside to play some defense on the perimeter, and that is great for your center position, especially in a Nick Nurse run system where rotations are very necessary to his defensive plan. And the fact that we have a center in Nerlens Noel who can, when necessary, get out to the perimeter and play some solid defense, it is a very good prospect for the Toronto Raptors. Aaron Baines could absolutely not do it. Khem Birch wasn't bad at it, but Nerlens Noel is a much better defender than Khem Birch. And after only making $5 million last season, I don't think Nerlens Noel is going to cost a huge amount of money. I think that a solid $10 million contract is enough to convince you to bring in Nerlens Noel. Now, one thing you do need to worry about is injuries, because as I alluded to previously in the video, there were 2 big injuries over the course of his career. So can you really rely on this guy to be healthy? He proved last season that he can have a full season healthy, and injuries are always going to be a concern with any player. But for the price, I think that you can get Nerlens Noel on a 3 or 4 year, maybe $8 to $10 million a season. I think that that is a very solid contract, especially for his age. I think the perfect age to sign a player at is 27 years old, because you know exactly what you're going to get with the player. It is probably the prime of their playing career because they have the athleticism still, but also at 27 years old, they've played enough to have the smarts in the league. This deal makes a lot of sense for the Raptors. And as I was saying, this also is a great fit for Nerlens Noel, who is obviously a defense-first type of player. The Raptors are a defense-first type of team. Now, there are a lot of other teams who play that defense-first, but most teams, you would argue, are an offensive-first type of deal. But the Raptors definitely focus on the defensive end of the game, which is why there will be such a focus for Nerlens Noel to play on the defensive end. And with so many good weapons on the Raptors, who I think are really building up a proper team here, especially with that 4th overall pick, there's going to be a lot of guys who demand the ball, and having a 5th guy who doesn't need the ball a ton to be effective like Nerlens Noel is seriously going to help this team over the course of the season. The Raptors, they got it wrong last offseason bringing in Aaron Baines and Alex Len. It is absolutely vital to the success of the Raptors to get it right this offseason. And bringing in Nerlens Noel, maybe it is a little bit of a risk going for 3 or 4 years here, but I don't know what Nerlens Noel is truly going to be looking for. At 27 years old, I don't think you should risk it. I think he had a good season. He should cash in on 3 or 4 years. And I think that the Toronto Raptors, who have, I'd say, just over $20 million in cap space, can really look at this player like he could fill out the starting 5. You could also look to bring in a backups big. You could look in the second round of the draft to do that as well with some interesting prospects available. But the starting big is something the Raptors cannot afford to mess with this season. I think, and I agree, that at the start of the season, not having a center affected the dynamic of the team, which ultimately led to the snowball effect in the season going out of control. So get it right. Nerlens Noel, rock solid player, plays great defense, fits perfectly within this Toronto Raptors system, this defense first rotational system. And Nerlens Noel would be happy playing in a system that really would thrive around him on defense. He can protect the rim. He can spread the floor to defend as well. The only problem I would say is the fact he doesn't have a 3-point game, but he's a center. It's not completely necessary. You probably need to bring in a backup big who can shoot the 3, but they have those in the draft. I'm okay with what Nerlens Noel can offer, especially for that price point. I think this is a great move if the Raptors want to get it done, and I think it would be a great move for the player Nerlens Noel for a system that really fits his needs. So what do you guys make of the Raptors' reported interest in Nerlens Noel? Do you think this is a good player to bring in? Do you have your eyes on another center? The Raptors don't draft Evan Mobley. Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that wraps up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you are still here, be sure to hit that like button. If you did enjoy the video at any point, it really goes a long way to helping us reach some new viewers for the channel with that YouTube algorithm. Also showcases to me that you made it to the end of the video. Also, check out our Twitch, twitch.tv/amateursports, where we're doing NBA content in the offseason, as well as some other video game content. Just come out and hang out with a great community of people. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, again, on the road to 5,000 subscribers. You can help us get there by subscribing. Really would mean a lot to hit that milestone. Check out some other videos by the channel, and always remember, at the end of the day, believe what I say, and if you disagree, that is okay. Enjoy the grind, and I'll see you again next time for another video.